Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to analyze the 2025 Australian Open men's final between Zverev and Sinner. And let's get right into the analysis. Sinner was serving first, and I was very eager to see how Sinner was going to serve in this final against Zverev because in the first set of his semifinal against Shelton, Sinner was not serving well. He lost his serve twice in that set, but that did not happen against Zverev in the final because Sinner came out absolutely on fire on his serve and served 4 first serves in a row in that very first game. And I thought we're seeing a different Sinner in this final compared to the semifinal. Another big question mark for me, how Zverev was going to play in that first set. His body language on the court seemed somewhat negative, especially in the game at 3-all with Sinner serving. He was passive on the return, and it didn't seem like he was trusting his shots. Sinner ended up holding that game, went up 4-3. Zverev was serving with new balls, and he proceeded to spray 2 forehands in a row and put himself in a love 30 hole. Zverev was fighting very hard to hold this game. It went over deuce many times. Zverev also started attacking the net, but unfortunately in this game, out of the 6 times that Zverev came to the net, he lost the point 4 times. On top of that, Zverev also committed 4 unforced errors in this particular game, got broken, and Sinner confidently and comfortably served out the first set, winning it 6-3. At 1-all in the second, with Zverev serving, he was facing 2 break points down 15-40, and quite frankly, he was very lucky to hold that game because he hit an overhead down 15-40 right on the baseline. He could have easily missed that overhead. And interestingly, in the very first game of the second set, Zverev missed another overhead. And this was a very interesting overhead because Zverev was moving forward and hitting an overhead. And this happens to be a very tricky shot. See, it's a lot easier to hit overheads when the player is stationary or when the player is moving backwards. If you happen to move forward and have to hit an overhead, those are very tricky to hit, and it's one of the least practiced shots in tennis. So with this overhead issue early in that second set, Zverev was lucky not to get broken in that game. He ended up holding serve. And at 5-4 in the second, Zverev had the best window to not only break Sinner for the first time, but also to take the second set, because 5-4 Zverev with Sinner serving, Sinner committed 2 loose errors. But the thing about Sinner that's so impressive is that he finds his absolute best tennis when it matters the most. And he played a clutch service game, held serve, and even the score at 5-all. Zverev had another small window up 6-5 with Sinner serving, and it was 30-all. And this point featured the best rally of the entire match. That Sinner won with a passing shot. Zverev lost a tremendous amount of points in this match when he came to the net, but we're going to get to that later. Sinner holds serve, and now we're in a second set tiebreak that was very interesting because Zverev went up a mini break 2-1. He then committed 2 unforced errors and gave the mini break back. And now Sinner was up a mini break serving 3-2. But Zverev got that point back and it was 3-all. Sinner serves a bomb, goes up 4-3. Now it's Zverev's serve and he serves a bomb. And at 4-all in the second set tiebreak on Zverev's serve, Sinner ends up hitting a Netzroller. And the German language has the best tennis vocabulary. What a Netzroller is a net roller when the ball touches the tip of the net and dribbles over. And this is one of the most unlucky things that can happen to you as a player. And this happened at 4-all in the second set tiebreak with Zverev serving. Now Sinner was up 5-4. He serves an absolute bomb and is up 6-4. He serves another bomb and clinches the second set with a forehand winner. So this set was very close, but it was Sinner who won the most important points. And now, being up 2-0, it was clear to all of us that the chances of Zverev coming back were extremely small. In the third set, Sinner was up 3-2, no breaks up to that point, and it was Zverev serving. And at this moment in time in the match, you could see that the intensity had dropped for Zverev. His body language was not great. I will say that he gave himself a second shot at the changeover, which is something that he normally doesn't do. He only takes 1 shot. So maybe he wasn't feeling well. It's quite possible. But fact is that the intensity was down, and Sinner sensed that. And in that particular service game, up 3-2 with Zverev serving, Sinner started playing the ball a little bit higher and deeper, and Zverev basically broke himself. Now Sinner was up 4-2. He served a clutch service game, went up 5-2. Now one thing that I do want to mention, at 5-2, 40 love Zverev serve, Jannik Sinner hit a Madison Keys style forehand. It was maybe the fastest forehand that I've ever seen Jannik Sinner hit. It was a nothing to lose forehand. He just completely ripped it, and that thing went like an absolute laser beam inside out. If you happen to watch the match on replay, look for that forehand. 5-2, Sinner in the third, Zverev serving 40 love. It is one of the fastest forehands that I've ever seen. When he was serving for the match at 5-3, he did miss a couple of forehands. That game got kind of interesting. He missed the very first forehand of that game, went down low 15. Then at 30-15, he missed another one, and now it was 5-3, 30 all. And what I find so impressive with Sinner, and what quite frankly reminds me of Pete Sampras, is how clutch Sinner is on his own serve when it matters the most. At 30 all, Sinner plays a super steady point. Zverev gives him a forehand error, and now it's 40-30. Match point Sinner. And a week before the Australian Open, I saw a clip on Instagram of Sinner practicing forehand drop shots. And guess what? 40-30, match point Sinner. He pulls out a forehand drop shot, draws Zverev in. And again, like many times before in this match, Sinner passes Zverev at the net and wins his second Australian Open. So if we take a look at Zverev's stats from this final, it is clear where he lost this match, and it was on the return of serve. Through the entirety of the match, Zverev had 0 break points. If you take a look at the top row, that's the final against Sinner. The rows below are the previous matches. You will see that return first serve points and return second serve points feature the lowest percentages of the entire tournament. And especially shocking is the 15.8% first serve return points won. So Zverev surely needed to return well to give himself a chance to win this match, and he didn't do that. And now he is 0-3 in Grand Slam finals. And many people are wondering, can Zverev ever win a Grand Slam title? In the press conference after the match, Zverev said that he doesn't want to be remembered as the greatest player ever to never win a Grand Slam title. Zverev also said that while he serves better than Sinner, Sinner does everything else better than him. The forehand, the backhand, the volleys, the return of serve, and the movement is better on Sinner compared to himself. While Zverev surely can play better than he did in today's final, he could have made this match a lot closer. I do believe that Zverev has some physical limitations. He is not the player that's going to win 10 Grand Slam titles based on his build, based on his height, and based on his technique. See, it's not so easy for Zverev to just stand closer to the baseline and play aggressive. There's a reason why he stands where he stands in the court. His body movements are not as fast as Sinner, Alcaraz, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. The way he loads up for his shots is slower. He has quite a high loop on his forehand. He has quite a high loop on his backhand. He also has a long lag on his serve. And because he doesn't move fast in comparison to the big three, or Sinner and Alcaraz, in order for him to have time to execute the shots, his position in the court is further back. And when he then plays one of these guys in an important match like this, where you have to find your absolute top level to beat one of these big time players, he is a tad exposed with his court positioning. It gives the other player too many opportunities to create angles, to draw him in and expose him at the net. So he is at a big disadvantage. But the problem with Zverev is that he needs to stand where he stands in order to play aggressive. See, if he stood closer to the baseline, he wouldn't have as much time to prepare on his strokes, because again, his preparation is a tad slower compared to other players, and that's just the way he's built. Zverev, with his body height, is never going to move like a Sinner or an Alcaraz, which brings me to the next point. The best that I've ever seen Zverev play was in 2022 in the semifinal against Rafael Nadal, who had just taken out Novak Djokovic in the quarterfinals. So while this was old Rafa, this was still a Rafa that won the French Open and was close to impossible to beat even for Novak. Now Zverev had beaten Alcaraz in the quarters. In my opinion, The first set that he played, which he lost 8-6 in a tiebreak, and in the second set at 6-all, he rolled his ankle and was out for a long time. Those were the best 2 sets that I've ever seen from Zverev. See, Zverev plays his best tennis on clay. And to me, that's not a surprise, because based on what I told you a couple of minutes ago, the fact that he needs a little bit more time to load up on his shots, clay gives him that. And I do think that the French Open is going to be another opportunity for Zverev to win a Grand Slam title. It's also going to be super interesting to see how Sinner performs at the French. He is clearly the best player in the world. He's close to unbeatable on hard courts. What impresses me the most is the improvements that Sinner has made on his drop shots, his volleys, and that defensive backhand where he slides out with his left foot seems to be getting better and better. And he can put that backhand down the line, cross court, especially when players attack his backhand side. He's able to pass so well with that particular shot. So his movement continues to get better, and he is clearly the best player in the world. The big question mark is, how will his game translate to the clay courts and the grass courts? I think it's going to translate really well. And Jannik Sinner is capable of winning both the French Open and Wimbledon. But these tournaments are far away. There's a lot of great tennis to be played prior to that. And I'm going to cover a lot of these tournaments. So stay tuned to the Intuitive Tennis YouTube channel. Next week, I will feature my last playtest in the Finding a New Racket series. And shortly after that, I'm going to post the series finale. I have no idea which racket I'm going to choose. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to the Intuitive Tennis YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys soon.